Hello, everybody. I'm starting to see familiar names and faces. Welcome to our event this evening. I'm just going to wait for a few minutes until I see the number of people joining us starting to slow down. Again, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It's great to see some familiar faces and names. It's great to have you all with us on this crazy weather day in Ann Arbor. I think some of you are far away, but here in Ann Arbor, we've had an ice storm. And we know that some people who plan to join us this night are not able to because they don't have power. So best wishes to all of you who are recovering from the storm. We will be recording this evening's program and sending the recording out to everyone. So you'll be able to watch it again if you're with us tonight. Or if you're watching this as a recording, we wish you were with us and are sorry that you're experiencing the after effects of the storm. So I still see a few people joining us, so I'll just wait another minute or two before we get started. Welcome, everyone. If you're out of town, maybe you'd like to put a note in the chat where you're visiting with us from. It'd be kind of fun to see where people are. Or maybe everyone is from in town, I'm not sure. All right, I'm not seeing anybody waiting in the waiting room anymore, so we're going to get started. Good evening, everybody. I'm so glad to see you all here this evening. This is a special program for the Museum of Natural History's members and donors called Unseen Worlds, Bodies in Motion and at Rest. It's a virtual event, which is a good thing because the weather's been pretty crummy here lately. So again, I want to welcome you, and above all, I'd like to thank you. This is an event for our members and donors, and we depend on your support so that we can provide everyone access to the University of Michigan's cutting-edge research. And your support helps us keep the museum free for families and individuals coming to the museum, and you support our many free public events and programs. Thank you so much. Just a few technical details as we get started. As you've probably noticed, this session is being recorded so that we can share it with other members and donors. And we'll also share it out via our Museum at Home platform. We have an e-newsletter that'll go out. We've muted everyone to reduce background noise. Thanks for continuing to stay muted. And if you want to change the layout of your screen, you can click on View in the upper right corner to choose a different option. You can also enable closed captions if you'd like to. And if you have any tech questions, just put them in the chat. We've got some staff in the background available to help you out. Oops, I went too fast, too far. So tonight, we're going to have a quick museum date that I'll lead you through a few slides. And then we'll be taking 30, maybe 40 minutes of exploration and discussion of Unseen Worlds, Bodies in Motion and at Rest with artist Jim Cogswell and choreographer and dancer Leah O'Donnell, our special guests. Then there will be time for Q&A with the audience. And then after the event, we'll send you a survey to request your feedback. So just to let you all know, if you're not certain, the museum is currently open Tuesdays through Sundays from 10 to 4. We open specially from time to time. So coming up is the school spring break. So we'll be open Monday, March 27th, and the rest of the week as usual with special programming. And then starting May 1st, we'll be open 7 days a week. And that'll continue through August. Our planetarium is back open at full capacity after being at reduced seating during the pandemic. We have public shows Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And we've been doing some really fun special events in the planetarium lately that are very popular. The most recent one was the Lunar New Year program that was offered over 3 weekends. Every show sold out. So we learned that that's something that people are really enjoying, and we may do more shows next year. There'll be special shows during the school break week as well. School groups and U of M classes are coming back in full force. It's really great to see so many school kids here again. And last year was our best year ever for U of M class visits. One of the reasons for that is that we're now welcoming Bio 173, which has more than 700 students. So we're thrilled to have such a large class come to the museum. And don't worry, they come in groups of 40. So it's not all 700 at once. And as always, our student docents are among the most essential employees on our museum staff. We hired and trained 24 new student docents this past fall. We'll hire again in May, and we just couldn't operate the museum without them. And as an example, we recently had a dinosaur discovery day, and 21 of those student docents worked that day. It was an amazing day with attendance of 2,383 people. It was super, super busy. Here are some upcoming events. We hope to see those of you who are local come on down. Sometimes they're off-site. A scientist spotlight, and it includes some young scientists from Forsyth Middle School, and a science cafe coming up on March 22nd. We have a really special scientist spotlight featuring snakes and salamanders, if that's your thing, on March 28th. And then on March 31st, we have our 2023 Farrand Lecture, and Jim Cogswell, tonight's guest, will also be part of that Farrand Lecture. Summer camp just went became available online for registration on Tuesday this week. Members were able to register first, and many of the sessions have already filled. So we're thrilled about that the camp is so popular. We do have some spots left, so if you're interested, you can email Nora or use the chat to request the link. And then finally, I want to share that we have a new temporary exhibition opening on March 17th called Unearthed. And it's about research that's done deep, deep underground, a mile underground in a former gold mine in South Dakota, where cosmic radiation doesn't reach the instruments used to study dark matter and other topics. And at this research facility, there was an artist in residence, their first one, Gina Gibson. So we'll be displaying her artwork along with information about the gold mine, its history, and the research that's done there. That'll be in our experimental gallery. So that's what I'd like to share with you about the museum tonight. And now we'll turn to our main event. This evening, we're going to have a conversation with Jim Cogswell, who is the artist behind the museum's Unseen Worlds exhibition, which you can see from inside or outside the museum, and also choreographer and dancer Leah O'Donnell, who created, directed, and performed a dance responding to Unseen Worlds, as you will see shortly. I will briefly introduce Jim and Leah, and then Jim will provide some background on how Unseen Worlds came to be, and Leah will provide an introduction to the dance that responds to Unseen Worlds. We'll see the video shortly after that. And we'll also provide a link to the video after the program so that you can watch it again at your leisure. It's possible that the video quality may be somewhat bumpy depending on your internet connection. After we watch the video, Jim and Leah will have a conversation about their work, and then we'll invite questions from you, the audience. So, okay, let's bring Jim and Leah onto the screen together with me. So I'm going to introduce Jim and Leah now. So Jim Cogswell is an Arthur F. Thurnau professor at the Stamp School of Art and Design at the University of Michigan. His creative practice is grounded in painting and drawing, along with public art projects that engage directly with the architecture, collections, and social context of museums and cultural institutions. Cosmogonic Tattoos was an installation in 2017 for the Kelsey Museum of Archaeology and the University of Michigan Museum of Art, based entirely on objects in their collections. In 2022, he installed vinyl Euripides at the Michael Kakayanis Foundation in Athens, Greece, and also from 2022, hands, nets, and other devices at the International Museum of Contemporary Sculpture in Santo Tirso, Portugal. And Leah O'Donnell is a choreographer, teacher, and MFA candidate at the University of Michigan. Before returning to school, she spent 13 years as a professional dancer in New York. Leah's current choreographic research is immersed in nonlinear streams of consciousness and natural landscapes that highlight humanity's interdependence with the earth. Jim, take it away.
There we are. Good evening. Thank you, Amy, for your support for this project all the way from the beginning and for helping us bring it to this audience tonight. I also want to thank all you folks out there in Zoom land for being here, and to thank Thomas Lynch, who is a marvelous Michigan poet from whose book of essays we borrowed our title, Bodies in Motion and at Rest. So Amy first approached me about this project back in 2018 when the building was still under construction. Both of us were interested in featuring images of microorganisms right from the start, but I had no clue how to do it. I knew Amy was aware of a certain playfulness in what I do. I've made a lot of work that involves images of the human figure, for example, but they're often hybridized with other objects and creatures. But this is a natural history museum, and I didn't want to play fast and loose with my representation of the non-human. That just didn't seem right. Among other things, I wanted specialists to recognize what they were looking at. So my problem was how to make the non-human visually relatable without misrepresenting it. So I decided to address that issue by the very careful selection of images with the shape qualities that would make them dynamic elements on the windows. Something that would carry viewers around the building, up and down the stairs from street level to the main floor atrium. So there was color, scale, pattern, grouping, and above all, movement. Therefore, I can say this project is as much about the architecture of the building as it is about the microorganisms. It addresses the movement of people through the spaces that the architecture defines, as it seeks to address why those people are there in the first place, a curiosity about the world beyond the realm of human affairs. I'm fond of this quotation from the architectural critic Martin Filler, who says, "I've always been drawn to architecture more than any other art form, in large part because of its social dimension. A well-executed building or inviting public space can bring people together in ways that strengthen our communal values and at the same time make us more aware of our individuality." So the movement of visitors through these museum spaces is being choreographed by the architecture. My visual response in vinyl on glass has likewise been choreographed by the building itself. Even in our most mundane activities, there are social dimensions as much as physiological constraints, beauty and intelligence in the disposition of human bodies in relation to each other, all of us, and our own human bodies in response to the spaces through which we move. So To solve my problem at the museum, the movement of the viewer became the human dimension that I wanted to avoid imposing on the natural forms of the microorganisms themselves. Leah was an MFA student in the Department of Dance when she enrolled in a collaborative arts class that I co-taught a little over a year ago for creative practitioners from arts programs around the university, Stamp School, School of Music, Theater, and Dance, and the Creative Writing Program, among others. In that course, I had a chance to experience how Leah responds so intelligently through body movement to images, language, objects, and spatial constraints. So at the conclusion of the course, I asked if she might work with me to create a response to Unseen Worlds here at the museum. That's how this all began. So now I'd like you to hear from Leah.
Hi, thank you, Jim, and thank you, Amy, so much. And hello to everyone who's here tonight. Yeah, so I'm just going to explain my process. As we mentioned, there is already sort of, as Jim was responding to the architecture of the space in the museum, and then adding his artwork there, then I had sort of those two layers already to respond to. And I also got to experience Jim's playful energy and like bringing all the students together from different realms. So I was really excited about the project when he asked. So basically, I just started by Amy and the staff and the security team at the museum was kind enough to let me in after hours, because this really is a space that the work has to be made in this space. I couldn't really go home and imagine what was going to happen in the stairway with the shadows, with the colors and the shapes and the rail, and then just make it happen there. So I really needed to play in the space. And that made really all the difference to get to have that time of play and experimentation rather than scripting it out and then hoping it's just perfect when everyone arrives. So that was really fun. And in a way, it's like it starts as low pressure because I'm just in the space playing. But on the other side, even though it's closed, it's still sort of a public space automatically due to the windows. And so people walking by, I would get, funny looks, but I think they enjoyed it. Me hanging upside down in the middle of the night there. But yeah, and so we call it a response to the space, and it really is. And for example, I think everyone can probably see now that I have the virtual background, and just in my memory, I'm still kind of choreographing, like you can see this line behind me, it feels like a spine, and I'm sort of tempted to align myself and then get my head to go in this circle and maybe like put my hands with some, yeah. So it really was a response to the space and the artwork. And we had a lot of fun. First, I would go and just play by myself and think about the different ways I would move down the stairs and against the wall, the smooth surface of the wall compared with the jaggedy shape of the stairs, and how I could play with gravity by being upside down on the rail, and then all the shadows that would be cast on me depending on the time of the day from the artwork, and fitting myself. Dancers love that, to frame ourselves in shapes and space. So I would do that with the artwork and stand in the windows. And it really, in a way, you really do feel sort of less alone and less at pressure to just invent from thin air, because you do have so much to respond to, like literally physically, but also image wise. And so yeah, it was metaphors to come up with. And then I played a bit in the space that way myself on off hours. And then over the upcoming summer after that, I invited 6 dancers to join. We started just with 2 to play in the space, but eventually I worked with 6 dancers. And they came into the space too, so that whatever I did in the space, I would record what I did and watch that later. And then I would bring them in and see how they could riff on what I had already invented. And sometimes they would improvise, and sometimes it was set choreography. So it was a whole mixture. And yeah, we had so much fun with it. And then Jim came in to see what we were working on, and we talked about it. And we talked about wanting to respond to the artwork and the theme, but at the same time, not too literally. So I wasn't trying to become and mimic the artwork, but still playing with the way it doesn't have arms and legs. So we would play with going down the stairs. Like, how would you go up and down the stairs without arms and legs? And we became really spiny and gravity was different. Yeah, so that's a lot of imagery to think about, but we can talk more about it once we see the film. We really had so much fun. Yeah. That's my main introduction to the process.
Great. Thank you so much, Leah and Jim, for setting us up to watch the video in just a minute. So just a reminder to everyone, you're among the very first to see this video of Leah's dance. And because everyone has different internet service levels, you may experience some choppiness in the video. And again, we're going to share the link with you after this program so you can watch it again on your own screen with the, I think it'll be on. Anyway, it's a lot better to watch when you have the link directly than watching someone else's screen. So we'd like to ask everyone to please mute your video. I think your audio is already muted because that'll just help make the presentation of the video a little stronger for everyone. And we can help with that from our end. Let's see. I think that's all I need to say. So, okay, here we go. Let's watch the video. Hey, welcome back, everyone. Thank you. That was wonderful. So now, for this part of the program, Jim and Leah are going to have a conversation about how their process intersected in this, and we'll see where their conversation goes.
Thanks, Amy.
You,
Leah,
Amy?
I don't think I might not have mentioned the video series, the YouTube series on Journey Through the Microcosmos. And there are parts of where the dancers are moving behind the glass that remind me of that series. If you all out there have ever never seen that, I recommend it. And the music too in the second part. I often describe what I do as site specific. And you can get real involved in that, what that means, but the easiest definition is something that is made to occupy a specific space and in response to that space, both culturally and physically, and in this case, architecturally. So I think you guys in dance, you use the word site specific as well. Do you use it in the same way?
We do, yeah. I think we think of it, yeah, as something that could only be made in that space. And dance otherwise is so often on a proscenium stage, so it's very forward facing for the audience. And so now we sort of like, it's not for one audience, it's just all around for the landscape of the place. Yeah, and in response to including historically. Yeah.
What's the attraction of doing something like that for you?
I think, let's see, for me, it just all of a sudden, like the ideas are already brimming there and it already feels alive in the space. So it really does feel like me responding to, like, I feel like I can go in the space and play and discover while I'm there, as opposed to on a proscenium stage, I feel like it's more like homework first. Like the invention happens before and alone, and it feels more collaborative in a way, even if there's not another human being. When it's site specific, it feels like collaborating with the space and the shape, especially shape, texture, color, just kind of anything the human body can respond to. And if in the natural world, often like in sand or in water, things literally splash and move with you. And same in this space, just molding myself to the shape is just really fun. Yeah, it feels more like play.
Yeah, there's something liberating about site specificity. Constraints are not a prison. Constraints are actually freedom. In this case, it allows you to have a starting point.
Yes.
It's the way I feel about it. gives you. I also know that improvisation is a big part of your practice. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's funny, when I was a little bit younger and dancing more than choreography, I was so scared of improvisation because it would be something that they would have us do at the end of an audition, and it would just be like, wow, us, like improvise, and people would be flipping and kicking their faces and all that. And that's what improvisation used to mean to me. And studying it now from the other end in choreography, it can really be something different, which is like just really pulling from, I guess, your own subconscious in a way, just going without thinking, although it is in itself a way of thinking, but just in the moment. And then also it gives you a chance to respond to what's around you, which makes a lot of sense with site specificity. And then when I'm working with dancers that are not myself, it's really nice actually to let them improvise in a space, because I can see what that particular body or that particular human is comfortable doing. And then I can help shape what comes naturally to the person instead of forcing always my own will or my own movement onto another body. So that's really fun. It feels like I'm bringing in individuals and they're not just objects that I'm forcing to do whatever I pre-imagined.
Nice. One thing, every time I see this footage, and both you and the dancers moving around in the architecture, I get the sensation of being small, small person, and a small person for whom the world is still fresh and new, and seeing how my body fits in this space or that space. Getting up on a little ledge is kind of a big deal. And there's a certain point in time when we quit doing that. And I really enjoyed the sensations of not childishness, but childlike exploration. And I was curious, why do we associate that only with children? People often say to me, oh, the kids will love the color on the museum. They must love it. And I go, I hope so, but you have to be a kid to enjoy it. Color?
Right. Yeah, I wonder. I think maybe we're not invited in the same way as adults to stop and appreciate little sensation and little things and color and excitement and novelty and play. But I hope that we still enjoy it just as much, but maybe I feel like our time is so valued on how productive we are in every single second that we don't in this society get a lot of chance to stop and play and appreciate those things. But it's funny that you said that about kids playing in the space and seeing how they fit into spaces. I go to the YMCA, and a couple days ago I was on the elliptical looking down on the pool, and I saw one of those classes where the parents are helping the little kids who are learning to swim. And the little kids were just like climbing up a ramp and letting their head hang off and see how that feels, and just enjoying all of it.
Just like you.
Yeah, just being upside down is so fun. I don't know. It's never gotten old to me. Yeah.
I'm sure though that Amy and the security staff were sort of hoping it didn't catch on too wildly there in those spaces.
Yeah.
In some of the choreography and in the video, you're thinking very specifically about a point of view. And you're using the camera to look at either eye level or straight down. What's that about?
Well, yeah, so in the beginning, we weren't entirely sure yet whether it would be a live show or a film. And then when we decided that it would be a film, we realized that, so there's site specificity, but there's also the perspective of the camera. So it became specific in multiple ways. And even though it's specific to the site, we kind of control in every moment, whether we're looking through a close-up lens or a zoomed out lens or from above. So we're thinking about that kind of the whole way through. And oddly, it was sort of helpful because even for live shows, the way I often work in choreography is I play in the space and record and then go consult that. So strangely, the camera was getting different angles, so I could play with that even just in rehearsing. And then we started to talk about it more together too, the specific angles we wanted to get. And that was one descending the stairs. Ari, one of the dancers, was in sort of an old wedding dress. And we could get her, only because of the camera from above, we could get her to sort of descend the stairs and then just sit down and disappear out of frame. So yeah, controlling the frame is really fun. But you do miss some things, but you also hone in on some things. And then it's sort of meta because we're talking about microscopic things, but we can make things giant, or we can make things feel microscopic, zoomed in, zoomed out. So that was really fun. And even playing with walking on the walls and defying gravity in those ways. Yeah.
Nice. I enjoy how you do that. I think there's a kind of perspective game that I'm playing also. When people walk by my window installations, they're conscious probably of focusing on the forms that are on there, but the forms are always constructed to have lots of negative spaces inside them and to have appendages that connect them to other forms or that give them directionality. And that between these forms, you're framing the negative space. So when you're standing in front of the window, the vinyl elements, you're actually not just seeing the vinyl, you're seeing everything that's around and between and inside the vinyl. And then when you move, all that shifts because of parallax. So the things that are further back shift at a different rate than the things that are up front. So a kind of point of view is, and the dynamics that are built into a point of view is embedded in this whole business of making these final installations.
Yeah, and I feel like in a way the vinyl installations are responding to each other, even how you said they have sort of appendages reaching toward each other, and even responding to the sun with the shadows that you can see in the screen behind you that are so lovely, sort of like seasonally specific.
Pattern is also real important to me. I love repetition and variation. So that's what's going on behind you. A certain repetition of diatoms that's not quite in beat with the repetition of algae, the microsterias that are there in 2 rows going this way. And I think of the dance, the movements that you created and worked with the dancers to create as also being about pattern, repetition, moving forward, stepping back, starting over again. Yeah.
Yeah, we thought a lot about sort of ascension and descension with the stairs going up and down. And also something about that sliding movement that and stepping, the timing, like really synchronizing with each other. And also, I don't know if it was as much conscious in the moment, but when I watch the film, I think about invisibility in a way, like as the title says, unseen, but the dancers, there's a lot of stillness in there too. And so it was active, but it was also still. And then it was also sort of, the dancers are sometimes being observed and sort of aware of that, and other times observing, just looking out the way a visitor in the museum might look out. So sort of like responding to each other in that way too. The 2 dancers were upside down on the stairs with their hair hanging back. I thought about that sort of a lot, mostly in editing, oddly, but maybe subconsciously before, of being sort of just invisible in the space, but inhabiting the space as maybe microorganisms do, or invisible to us anyway. And then the other dancers just walking past. So yeah, and floating in and out, that feeling.
Well, I love the way in which you allowed me to reintroduce the anthropomorphic into these non-human forms by the way the dancers moved in and behind and around. It's just so delightful.
Oh, I'm so glad. We had so much fun too. It kind of, and on the same token, allowed us to play with being less human, and inspired by the forms. We felt like there's like jelly in our veins instead of blood or something, just like yeah, imagining other life forms and getting to inhabit that too. It was really fun, movement wise.
I wonder if there are any folks out there that would like to ask any questions of Leah, especially.
Thank you for sharing your conversation. And I'm just going to explain to everyone how we're going to take questions. On your Zoom screen, there's a function on the bottom row towards the right called reactions. So if you click on that, you might need to click more in order to see the reactions option. And then within that, there's raise hand. So if you click on raise hand, a hand will show up in your upper left corner of your screen, and you'll also be put in the sequence in which you ask the question. So that way we don't have to make sure we don't get someone out of order. So I see that Carol already has a question. And when we call on you, we're going to spotlight you. And if you're not comfortable with that, you can always stop your video. And then you can ask your question and we'll go on from there. So let's start with Carol.
I loved it. Thank you, everybody. It was great. I had a real reaction about the life that was in the shadows. It was the movement, the people walking across the bridge really added to it that, and I also love this jelly in our veins, just beautiful. Because I'm not a scientist. I did take biology in 10th grade. But I remember, these little organisms floating. And that's what it is. That was, so you really exhibited the jelly. And I love that. And you made magic happen. I'm just responding right now to the dance part. Yes, the art part is also magic. I'm looking at the green that pops out of the tree inside the red on your, and that's magic, that negative space. I'm an artist. So where am I going with this? The wedding dress with the stripes on the hem, mimicking the stripes of the architecture of the steps. It was just beautiful. Enough about me. I might have more if nobody else does, but thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. That's so kind.
If anyone would like to ask a question, again, you'll use the reactions function on the lower level, and you click that and then click raise hand. And while people are thinking about their questions, I wondered, Leah, if you could tell us a little bit about the music. I was wondering.
Yeah.
Beautiful and really a great match for the movements. So tell us a little about that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So the music is made by a composer named Michael Wall, and his title that he goes under is Sound for Movement. Yeah, and actually it's pretty cool. It's a niche that is not a large niche, but he makes music specifically for movement artists. Yeah, because that's just a really complicated thing that, we need rights to music to work and all of that. So he makes a really nice niche for that. But yeah, I really enjoy how a lot of his library catalog of music is really like, you can choose a sensation and it helps underscore, it kind of like works with the movement, but it's not so, there's no like consistent beat like this that now the dance has to form to that, if that makes sense. So it doesn't overwhelm the movement, but it still has shifts, like with sort of flowy in the beginning part and then gets a little more sparse and dramatic toward the end. And Jim and I were talking about how the movement almost seems to change when you see the same movement, but to different music. It feels like punctuated by those beats, even if in the moment the movement was flowy. So it's really fun to play with those juxtapositions too.
Thanks, Leah. I see that Erica has a question.
Yes, I was especially struck by the sequence on the stairs where the dancer was walking up. There was a row of dancers on one side and the dancer was walking up the stairs, and every once in a while you'd see the hand come out like that. It was a little different, a little more jerky or whatever from the rest of the free-flowing piece. So I wondered about that. I mean, it's always interesting to have things go in an unexpected direction as well as the flowing. And I love the wedding gown, and I love the hair on the stairs, and I love the dancers framed especially when they were climbing up. And I love the different times of day. So that's a lot for me to say, but that one sequence I was struck by.
Aw, thank you.
What motivated you to do that, Leah?
Well, yeah, it's funny. At that point, I think we nickname each sequence just so that we can get to it quickly in rehearsal and know what I'm talking about if I say, let's rehearse this section. So we kind of called that the seatbelt section because it felt like she's like the seatbelt's locking on her when she goes forward. And I don't know, we weren't thinking of it too literally, but I was sort of imagining going up a stairs as if it's like, an ascension or getting where you're trying to go, and sort of the getting blocked along the way and being pushed back and then trying again. So yeah, that was just sort of the basic image that we were playing with. And sort of thinking of this, I also was thinking of turnstiles in a way. I used to live in New York. So yeah, like we played with it being a hand, but also just a sharp thing that comes out. So yeah, it's kind of that. And something that was important in practicing it was never put your hand out and then Kristen will act like she got pushed. She had to feel it and be surprised by it in the moment, which is, even true of partnering or salsa or something. You really have to give your partner that pressure so that it's real, the response to it, not faked, if that makes sense. Yeah, just imagery, I suppose.
It also had a game-like quality to it.
Yeah, very true.
Red Rover, or something.
There are a couple of comments in the chat that I'll share with Jim and Leah. One is from Louisa, who's sharing that her mom was going to come tonight, but wasn't able to because she doesn't have power and was disappointed. But she wanted Louisa to share how much they enjoy the shadows of on the stairs that the cutouts on the windows create. They're so beautiful. And she's appreciating this event. And then there's another comment. Ooh, my the lights in my office just went dim because I didn't move enough. I have motion activated lights in my office. And Pi, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, says she loves the shadows as well, and made her think that there needs to be a "don't do this" disclaimer, because it looks super fun to climb the columns and slide down the window wells.
Sorry, Amy.
People are wondering if they're going to get a copy of the recording or a link to the recording, and the answer is yes. Nora will send that out. There's a request for the image behind Jim. We are going to share out Zoom backgrounds, so you'll all get at least one Zoom background. I don't know how many Nora's going to send, but then you'll be able to look like we look right now with these cool things behind us. So Carol, did you put your hand up again, or is it still up? It's up again. Okay, let's go back to Carol. You're muted, Carol. I think maybe I can help unmute you, or one of us can. Let's see, where's Carol? Did you do it? No. There we go.
Okay. So the story arc to me of the ballet, of the dance, made more sense, and I really love the fact that you had the story of the primates, because it was the connection between it was the biology growing and evolving. Who was the one who decided to put that in? Because I thought it was really very, very interesting and added to it.
Leah had been from the very beginning, had responded to those window niches in just marvelous ways. And I loved the way that she and some of her dancers were moving in that space. And we realized that we could zero in, but to get the full shot, we had to include that case that was right next to it. And it was kind of funny that it said the ape dimension. There wasn't much we could do about it. So then I'm answering for you, Leah. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So then we said, well, let's just go with this. Let's get a dancer to go up there and operate it, push those buttons. So Leah, I jumped in. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm glad you did, because at first I interpreted the question as that the whole dance was us being primates. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I meant to do that. But then I realized what you meant, that the screen. Yeah, we were just, I feel like that was a moment of play also. And it was at first like, uh-oh, can we frame this so that isn't in here? And then we realized it was fun, basically. And I didn't realize until editing that Nana, the dancer who's kind of controlling it in this way, there's a moment where she's pressing it and we're kind of playing with as if the window that I'm sliding down at the same time, if that makes sense, is sort of an elevator, and there's another dancer stalling me from the other window. So there's all that reaching happening. And then I saw in editing, because I was looking way more closely, that actually the ape in the video is also reaching at the same second, which was really fun. Yeah, it was really fun to play with. And I think it was just sort of there. So it became part of the site specificity of it all.
Well,
It's
it
all
really worked well with the serendipity. That's what creativity is about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
About putting us in our correct place in the big picture.
I think we have time for about one more question, and I see Lori has a question.
So Leah, I was wondering where the music fit into the process of choreographing. In some ways I could see, you can create each of those movements individually.
Yeah.
It don't need music to do those. So how did that flow into it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It actually came really in the end. There was one time in the space when I came in and played a little music in the background just to sort of inspire myself for movement based on rhythm and the structure and the images and all of it at once. So it was fun to play with that, but that really wasn't what shaped the movement in the end. So what happened was we basically recorded it just with real live sound. And I don't know if you could hear over Zoom or not, but there were moments where we chose to leave that sound in, the natural sound. It was actually a thunderstorm on the second day of filming, which was really fun. So you can hear sort of that it's like wet and rainy outside as the cars zoom by. And so sometimes it just coincided nicely with some kind of fluid arch that a dancer was doing when it's like, when the car goes by as she's arching. So there were moments where we left those sounds in on top of the music. But the music itself, I really just did afterward. And I kind of, even in editing, I first just took sections that I enjoyed or that we liked and then put them together. And then the way they went together sort of started a rhythm. And then I just tested different kinds of music. And then eventually just realized a shift in tone would be nice where the second music comes in. But yeah, really, it came later, which is different than a lot of like more classical choreography, which is like there's the music and then you make the dance to the music. But it can be fun, especially with modern dance, a lot to do it the opposite way.
I think I was so smart to invite Leah to do this.
Thanks, Jim. And
So
to
much
make
fun.
you were smart. It was so much fun.
Oh, I see applause from Sam.
Yeah.
Probably squeeze in one short question, or else I will just bring us to the end. Looks like we're ready to wind up for tonight. I want to thank Jim and Leah so much for their bringing us their creative genius. Unseen Worlds is still on display. You'll be able to come and see it at the museum whenever you want. Even when we're closed, you can see it from the outside. We will be sending you a survey for your feedback, along with a link to the dance recording for this event. And as I mentioned, we'll also send you at least one Zoom background featuring Unseen Worlds. And then we hope to see you at the March 31st Farron Lecture featuring Jim Cogswell and two colleagues. The two colleagues are scientists. One is a faculty in the Department of Molecular, Developmental, and Cellular Biology. I got that wrong. And then the other person is actually an engineer. But it should be a fascinating panel discussion. It's on March 31st, and there's a public reception at the museum beforehand. And then we'll walk across the sidewalk to the new central classroom building to use the auditorium there, which will be really cool. So let's have a round of applause for Leah and Jim. And thank you all so much for being here tonight. And thank you so much for your support of the museum. Thank you. And good night, everybody. Be safe out there. If it's getting icy again, I don't know.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.